Michigan in this one, their back is against the wall. College football has never been better. Interest has never been higher. Believe that we are at the dawn of the golden age of college football. It was an epic day of college football. It was one of those days where you fall in love with the sport all over again. Welcome into the program, everybody. I'm Joel Klatt. This is the Joel Klatt Show. We are presented by Hampton by Hilton, and it is a preview day. Let's get to these games, and I cannot wait to get to these games. Listen, wherever you're listening, make sure to rate and review us wherever you're listening to your podcasts, and then go subscribe to the YouTube channel. We've got a lot of stuff planned for the YouTube channel. It continues to grow. We're up over 160,000 followers. When we get to 200,000 followers, there's going to be a nice little giveaway and announcement. More on that coming up in the next few weeks. So make sure you're inviting your friends. And then leave a comment, like the video, all the things. Follow us on social at Joel Klatt Show, wherever you like to social media. You can follow me on Twitter at Joel Klatt. We got to get into some games. I'm going to preview some games. And just to update you on where we stand here with the Joel Klatt Show and our preview episodes, I do pick against the spread. I have done it now each of the first few weeks. We are 9-7 here against the spread. 3-3 last week, a nice 500 week. It's okay. Listen, as long as you're not losing, am I right? So 9-7 on the year, and here we go. We're going to get some picks against the spread as we begin. I am not going to pick against the spread in the game that I'm calling, so a quick synopsis here of the game that I'll be at as Marshall goes to visit number 3 Ohio State. Marshall's 1-1 on the season, coming off a loss to Virginia Tech in their last game. Now, that was a 3-point game midway through about the third quarter before the Hokies kind of pulled away and won that one 31-17. As you guys can imagine, this game is obviously going to be more about the Buckeyes. I love getting in and actually seeing a team, in particular in person and specifically in their home stadium, because we get to go meet with them in person, and I can start to get a real feel for that team, their chemistry, what's going on inside of the building in terms of how bought in they are together, all of the different things. So I really am excited to go to Columbus and actually see this team, because from afar, they look like one of, if not the best team in the country. Now, they haven't had the opponent to prove that yet, which is why I didn't put them number one in my rankings there on Monday. But to this point, they've been totally dominant. I've been so interested to see how this run game for Ohio State is going to manifest under Chip Kelly, a guy that always runs the football well, regardless of where he's been as a play caller. And now he's the coordinator for Ryan Day. It was a huge story in the offseason. Ryan Day, who's one of the best play callers himself in the sport, giving up those duties to be the head coach and CEO, and he brings in really his best friend in the industry, the guy that he played for at New Hampshire when he was a quarterback, and he brings in Chip Kelly. I thought specifically it was going to be about the run game and the improvement in the run game, which is what they needed over the course of the last couple of years. They had become far too reliant on the straight drop back pass over the last couple of years. They got beat up at the line of scrimmage a few years ago by Michigan. They tried to get better at it last year, ran the ball somewhat effectively against the Wolverines, but ended up losing the game. Again, a little too reliant on the drop back pass. Now you've got Chip Kelly, and what I think is the biggest development of the season for Ohio State is what he's doing in the run game. 170 yards over 5 per carry in week 1, 273 yards on 7 per carry in week 2. Obviously, the competition has not been great, but it's signs of improvement. Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins in the backfield, and this is an offensive line that is going to get even better with Donovan Jackson back at guard as he's starting to get better. I'm excited to see the offense and the run game specifically. Now, one thing that I would note, Chip has never had as quality of wide receivers really in his career as a play caller as what he has had, or has, I should say, at Ohio State this year. And more specifically, Jeremiah Smith. As good as Emeka Egbuka is, Carnell Tate, these guys that have been highly recruited, and they are great players, Jeremiah Smith looks to be the best young player maybe in the country. And we saw a great one last week for Alabama and Ryan Williams. We've seen Dylan Raiola play really well at quarterback for Nebraska. We've seen some true freshmen play well, but there's something about the number one player in the country. There's something about seeing Jeremiah Smith and play his style of physicality and speed. I'm here for it. I'm really excited to see him in person and actually get a feel for what's going on that offensive side. I've said throughout the entirety of the offseason, I thought Ohio State could be one of, if not the best defense in college football. They're proving that out. They had a field goal kicked against them on the very first series of the season, and since then, they've allowed 3 points on their last 25 drives, and they haven't allowed a team to reach the red zone. So guess what? They're dominant on defense. Can't wait to go see them. So that's the Big Noon Saturday game. Gus, Ginny, and I will be there. Big Noon Kickoff, of course, is going to be there. That starts at 10 Eastern. Make sure to tune in. But remember, we've also got Friday Night Football on Fox. And this year, we've got some marquee matchups on Friday night that continues this week as we have a ranked Big Ten matchup on Friday night on Fox. Number 24, Illinois, goes to Lincoln to take on number 22, Nebraska. Now, Nebraska is an 8.5-point favorite, which suggests, and I'm all here for it, the AP voters have done a complete disservice to Nebraska. The AP poll is terrible. It is garbage. Stop looking at the AP poll. They have no idea what they're doing. They move teams up and down just based on their preconceived notions and never adjust their preconceived notions. Now, is mine any better? I like to think so, because at least I'll adjust in a big way when I see some team really struggle, really dominate. I'll move teams quite a significant gap. Meanwhile, the AP poll, like, come on. Nebraska is far better than the number 22 team in the country, and the 8.5-point spread against the 24-ranked team in the country should suggest that. I think this is a massive matchup. These two programs looking to climb up in the Big Ten hierarchy, and I've been here for Nebraska the entire offseason, and I'm here for Nebraska right now. Nebraska gets another night game in Lincoln, and if we learned anything with that game against Colorado earlier in the season, it's that environment is like on fire, and I've said this on social media, and I will continue to say this. Watch out for Nebraska, okay? If they don't turn the football over, and they haven't, then this place is going to be on fire. That fan base is one of the best fan bases in all of college football. I had the privilege of playing there as an opponent twice in Memorial Stadium. It is loud as any stadium in the country, and that fan base is desperate for a winner. They have been waiting for the better part of 25 years to see quality football in Memorial Stadium, and they're finally starting to see it. So you think Friday night's going to be off the hook? Yes. That is exactly what's going to happen. That night environment in Lincoln is going to be incredible. Dylan Raiola has been as good as advertised, folks. I'm here for Dylan Raiola. I think that he is really good. And in the preseason, I remember saying that all he needed to do was be a net positive. And I think he's been more than that. If you go back to last year, and I know that I've said this statistic time and time again, but in their 5 one-possession games, they turned the ball over 17 times. 14 of those 17 turnovers were by the quarterback specifically. So all he had to do was come in and solidify that position from a turnover standpoint. Not even like, hey, go be great. Just don't turn the football over, and that team was going to elevate to an 8 or 9 win team. And now he's not only not turning the football over, only 2 in the 3 games, but he's been, in a lot of cases, the best offensive player that they have. So now he's a reliable commodity within that offense, and it's an offense that's physical. They run it well. They need to develop an outside threat. That's certainly the case. And in a lot of ways, the passing game, he's the best part, Raiola, of the passing game, because they don't have a threat on the outside that really strikes fear in you, although maybe that'll develop. I just think Nebraska is going to be really tough to beat at home. If you take a look at these Friday night games, and this goes back, it doesn't even have to be a ranked game, but even last week, Arizona and Kansas State, Arizona goes into Manhattan, Kansas, and gets thumped. Going on the road on a weeknight is incredibly difficult. It's a short week already. You're totally thrown off based on the schedule of your own team, and now you've got to go and you've got to play a night game. You've got to play on the road, and it's a weeknight, so it's unique. The fans are ready. I just do not like road teams on Friday night. So I don't care if it's 8.5 or not. I'm going to ride with Nebraska and lay the points. Illinois has been good, though. I want to credit Brett Bielema for what he's doing with Illinois. They got a nice win over Kansas, and they've capitalized on takeaways this year. They've got 9 takeaways in 3 games, and they're +8 in the turnover battle. If that continues, they'll have a shot in this game, but that's largely why they have been so successful this year. Their quarterback, Luke Altmaier, has been decent. Maybe even better than decent. I don't want to minimize it. 6 touchdowns, no interceptions. So he's doing what he needs to do. And Illinois, under Brett Bielema, is going to play a physical, tough, disciplined brand of football. That's just what I feel about Brett Bielema's teams all the time. That +8 in the turnover battle through 3 games is pretty serious. By the way, Nebraska, they're +3 so far. Illinois' defense has not allowed a touchdown since the late 3rd quarter against Kansas, so that's nearly 80 minutes of game time. I do think that this could be a low-scoring game, but again, the emotions and everything that's going on, I think Nebraska is going to come out, maybe a trick play, all that emotion early, and jump on them early. I think that they get to 24 overall, and with Nebraska's defense as physical as they play and as loud as that environment is, I think that Illinois is going to struggle offensively and only get to 14. I've got Nebraska winning at home by 10, 24-14. So I'm laying the points. I'm taking the Huskers Friday Night Football on Fox. Let's go on the road, shall we? Sponsored by Hampton by Hilton. When nothing else in life is 100% guaranteed, it matters where you stay. Hilton for the stay. So let's go on the road with USC, as they are going to have their first, what I would call, traditional Big Ten road game as they go to the Big House. Now, when we sat here as a college football public before the year, this was not a game that we were thinking is going to be like, yeah, I think USC is going to win that game. This is just not where we were at. The defending national champion had a great defense coming back. We felt like their offense would be at least similar to what it was a year ago, that their philosophy would be intact, and we had no idea what the defense was going to be like for USC with their new coordinator, D'Anton Lynn. And now we know each of those things. All the answers to the question have been laid before us. USC's defense, in a lot of ways, the most improved unit in college football. Michigan, questions abound. Not just they haven't answered them, there are more. We're changing quarterbacks 3 weeks into the season. So now you understand why number 11 USC is favored by 5.5 on the road against the defending national champion Michigan Wolverines, who are ranked 18th. Again, if you're just looking at Nebraska and Michigan, who's been the more impressive teams? Nebraska has been the more impressive team. They should be ranked higher than Michigan. And yet, because Michigan started higher than Nebraska in the AP poll, they just kind of moved them slightly, and that's how you get Michigan at 18 and Nebraska at 22. I digress. I really thought that this USC team could have a solid year. A lot of it depended on the defense specifically. I did not have a lot of questions about Miller Moss and the offense coming into the year. And that has been answered in the affirmative in terms of the defense with D'Anton Lynn. I'm such a fan of what this guy is doing on that side of the ball. If you don't know about D'Anton Lynn, he cut his teeth and really kind of like learned defense under that Baltimore Ravens style of defense when he was there in Baltimore. So he's there under Wink Martindale and with Jesse Minter and with Mike McDonald. And we see that defense and the success it's having at both levels of football. Obviously, it won a national championship last year with Michigan, and they were the best defense in college football in 2023. Now we see what it's doing at the NFL level. Chargers look fantastic. Seattle is 2-0 with Mike McDonald. Baltimore obviously still plays quality defense. This is a structure of defense that works, and it's working for USC. It's very sound, and what it does is it allows the players to leverage the football. It's what I love about this structure of defense, is that there is always heavy leverage being played. And so D'Anton Lynn is taking that structure of defense, and he has made USC a much better tackling team. Now, do I think that their ability to tackle has all of a sudden become so much better? Not necessarily. Here's what's happened, though. They have far fewer instances of a one-on-one matchup in space where the defender has no help. We used to see that all the time out of the USC defense. Now, what you see is multiple defenders with leverage on the ball. So the ball carrier's got nowhere to go. They have become a much better tackling team, and it's not necessarily just the fundamentals of the tackler as much as it is the structure of defense. When you can leverage the football on two sides, you're going to be a better tackling team. You're going to limit explosive plays. You're going to force a team to drive 10, 11, 12 plays down the field, and that's really what USC has been doing. Michigan in this one, their back is against the wall. A loss would be devastating for Michigan. Everyone would look to pile on the Michigan Wolverines. It would knock them well down the hierarchy of the Big Ten. You could see if they were to lose to USC, 4, 5, 6 teams maybe in the Big Ten that you would like and have in a higher tier, which I talked about in yesterday's episode. And then the questions for Michigan are just so obvious. Like, they're changing quarterbacks. So now you have to wonder, what are we going to get out of this offense with Alex Orji at quarterback? Now, I think it's going to be much more run heavy. I think it's going to be much more play action pass heavy and less drop back pass specifically. I think that we're going to get a ton of quarterback run. But to be honest, I don't really know. You know, a lot of people thought that Alex Orji was going to be the starting quarterback to begin the year. And it was a bit of a surprise when Davis Warren ran out there against Fresno State in their opener. Coming into the year, a lot of us thought that this was going to just be a smash-mouth, run-oriented team that would run it 50 or 60 times a game. And then when you put it into context of facing a porous USC defense, you thought to yourself, there's no way that USC could hold up against that style of offense. Well, now we get to question it. Can D'Anton Lynn's defense for USC hold up against what I think is going to be 45 to 60 run plays? With Alex Orji as your starting quarterback, that's going to be kind of the blueprint. Man, that's going to be a fascinating matchup to watch. I don't know if Michigan's going to be able to throw the ball consistently at all. One, because that question is obviously there just for the quarterback himself and Alex Orji. Then you couple the fact that Colston Loveland, their best target on the outside by a wide margin, their tight end Colston Loveland, is banged up with an arm injury. I don't know how effective he'll be. I don't even know if he's going to be on the field. If he's not on the field, they might run it 65 times. By the way, he's one of their better blockers. So could we see extra offensive linemen on the field? Are they going to force USC to defend the extra gap? Possibly. This question about what Michigan's offense is going to look like is palpable. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't want to be D'Anton Lynn because it's like, I don't really know what I'm going to get. It's almost like playing an opener all over again, which he had to do against LSU. Now the other side of the ball, when USC has the football and Michigan's defense is on the field. So these are two units that I really think highly of, obviously. Miller Moss has been tremendous. He makes big-time throws. We talked about that with Matt in that Monday episode of the Joel Klatt Show. And I don't even think USC's offense has really scratched the surface of how good it could be. I think USC is or has the potential to be a better run team than they have been. And they haven't really even featured what I would consider to be their best offensive player that's not a quarterback, which is Zachariah Branch. He's been fairly quiet so far this season, 8 catches for 75 yards over 2 games. If you look at what Texas was able to do against Michigan, what they were able to do is own third down. And on third down, what you saw from Quinn Ewers was the ability to escape the pocket. And when he was able to scramble in order to throw, big plays materialized down the field. Okay, Sarkisian's plan was really smart. He max protected, so he had 7 guys in to protect on third and long. And then he tried to take shots down the field. When he had a one-on-one, they were able to take it and exploit it. Then when Michigan decided, okay, let's play a little bit of coverage against that max protection, he was able to get loose, get away from that rush, and find completions down the field in order to move the chains. And even some cases, move the chains himself with his legs. Will Miller Moss be able to manipulate the pocket like Quinn Ewers did against Michigan's rush? That's a huge part of this game. Now, I think he's going to be able to do that. The guy looks like he's got moxie in spades. And to me, the way he played against LSU, the way that this offense looks, I think that they're going to be able to move the football. And then on the other side, for Michigan's defense, I have a real philosophical question about what Michigan's defense is going to be moving forward. I think that they've been too blitz heavy coming into the season. And if you blitz a Lincoln Riley offense, like, watch out. Watch out. You're playing with fire right there. And the reason is because Lincoln doesn't just run single option concepts. Almost every play that USC has either a pre-snap or post-snap option for the quarterback. The quarterback can get into a different play if he wants to pre-snap, or post-snap, there is a read, whether you can run it, throw it, all of those different things. So there are answers. There are constantly answers, simple ones, built into the offense for the quarterback. Miller Moss is a really smart guy. And so if the structure of defense on the other side from Wink Martindale starts to be manipulated and they start to try to bring things and pressure and blitz, USC will beat them. Okay? If they blitz 50% of the time, which is about what they've done to this point in the season, USC will beat them. Now, if they sit in structure and force USC to snap the ball 8, 9, 10, 11 times, which is what they did for the last 3 years, now I have a question. Okay, can USC really drive the football? Can they run the football against that front? How many times am I going to be in 3rd and long? So for me, the blitz rate from Michigan has got to go from around 50% to back where it was over the course of the last 3 years, which was about 28%. If they're able to do that, I think it makes life much more difficult on USC. But if they manipulate the structure and if they get too aggressive, Miller Moss is going to attack them and he's going to carve them up. That's where that matchup lies for me. USC is favored by 5.5. I don't think that Michigan is going to change their philosophy on defense. Therefore, I think USC is going to carve them up a little bit. I think that they're going to get a lead, and I don't know if the Alex Orji offense can come back. All right, that's something that we don't know. Michigan has to play from in front in this game, and with this quarterback, they have to play from in front, which is another reason why they should not blitz on the defensive side. That goes against the play caller's nature on the defensive side. So I think they blitz. I think that they fall behind, Michigan does, and I think USC wins this game 28-17. I'm laying the points. I'm laying the 5.5, and I'm taking USC in their first Big Ten road game. I'm going to take them covering that 5.5. I think that the Trojans win the game. Let's go Tennessee, Oklahoma. This is going to be a great game. I'm a huge fan of Tennessee, as you know. I moved them way up in my poll. They're 6.5-point favorites on the road at Oklahoma. There are so many good storylines in this game. Obviously, with Josh Heupel and Brent Venables facing each other. Heupel was the quarterback on the team that won the national championship for Oklahoma under Bob Stoops when Brent Venables was the co-defensive coordinator of that game. There is a long history between these two guys, these two programs. I'm here for it. Even Josh Heupel was trying to say, like, hey, you know, I think out of respect, the fans are going to be quiet for me, for what I've done. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. I think that the Palace on the Prairie is going to be jumping. There's no doubt in my mind. That place can get really loud. I think it's going to be a very difficult environment. And then you start looking at this matchup, and the matchup is fascinating. It's fascinating. The line has moved around in this game from 7.5 earlier. Now it's down to 6.5. Oklahoma in the first 5 games, Oklahoma in the first few weeks has been unimpressive on offense and very impressive on defense. So they're starting to take more of the identity of their head coach. If what they were under Lincoln Riley was strong offense, weak defense, now they're starting to be strong defense, weak offense. We have not seen them play very good offense. And with the schedule in front of them, you know, it makes me a little bit worried for them because they're going to have to score some points. This is the first of 5 games remaining on that schedule for OU against teams that are currently in the top 7 of the AP poll. Wild. Brent Venables has a horrendous schedule in front of him. By the way, little tangent here. If you're Brent Venables and anybody from OU, how do you look at your schedule and then you look at Missouri's schedule and you're like, timeout. Are we in the same league? What is going on? Look at those two schedules. Pull them up. Pull them up. They're not in the same hemisphere. One might as well be a group of 5 schedule versus an NFL schedule. They are miles apart. I think Georgia could say the same thing. I think Florida could say the same thing. Those 3 schools are looking at Missouri and being like, are you serious? Are you serious? This is why, and I will maintain this, and I said it in yesterday's episode, Missouri's record is going to be better than their team. Meanwhile, Oklahoma's record is going to be worse than their team. And I think that starts this week. Heupel's return to Norman is going to be fantastic. I'm here for it, but the defense is incredibly difficult for OU. So while I'd like to say that Tennessee is just going to roll out there and still be this number one scoring offense in the country who also runs the football, by the way, they're running it for over 330 yards per game, which is third in the FBS so far. Dylan Sampson, their running back, really good player. As Nico gets all the love, Ia Maliava, there we go. Nico Iamaleava gets all the love, and maybe rightly so because he's the quarterback. But this offense is balanced. I think it's more balanced than even the 2022 version with Hendon Hooker. And I think Iamaleava is actually a better athlete than Hendon Hooker, and so he presents more threats to the opposition. That's scary for the opposition, even for a really quality defense like Oklahoma. Now, being on the road and in his first true road environment, that's going to be a different story. I can just attest to this firsthand. Playing in your very first true road game is a vibe. I mean, like, it's a vibe. Neutral sites do not get you ready for this. Not at all. Quick story time. I played against Colorado State for my very first start ever. It was in Mile High Stadium. It was close to 80,000 in the stadium, but it was split down the middle. And I thought, man, that environment was incredible. And so my very first road start as a starter was at Kansas State. I didn't think anything of it because I thought to myself, can't be bigger and more crazy than the Rocky Mountain Showdown in Invesco Field. I was wrong. Your first road start is a vibe, and Nico's going to have to deal with that. Okay, in particular, in a matchup like this, with all the hype surrounding the game around it, I think it's going to be difficult. I expect Nico to throw a pick early in this game just because it's like, this is different. So watch out for that. It's a good thing for Tennessee, though. Their defense is also strong, so their defense can go out there and play well, in particular against an offense that has really struggled. I've been surprised that Jackson Arnold has struggled the way that he has for Oklahoma at quarterback. They let Dylan Gabriel go. It's a signal. It's like, hey, Jackson's going to be our guy. We want to throw the football down the field. And maybe they're going to be able to do that more so because they've got Nick Anderson coming back, their wide receiver, who I think is a really good wide receiver. I just haven't seen it. They haven't thrown the football for over 200 yards yet. Pick 6 late last week against Tulane, kind of let Tulane back in the game. I'm like, man. Meanwhile, the Vols defense, they haven't allowed a touchdown this season. They're really good up front against an offensive line that's continuing to shuffle. OU's offensive line has 5 new starters. They've been shuffling through this combination in the first few weeks, and they're trying to find it. So they're searching, and it's not a good place to be searching against this defensive front and against that quarterback in Nico Iamaleava. I think that the Oklahoma defense has been great, but they've been very opportunistic. They're going to get a pick early. I just feel that. Again, the environment, young quarterback, first road start, but that's not going to be enough to sustain. I think it's a really close game. I cannot in good conscience say that a kid in his first road start is going to go cover. So I can't take the 6.5 in Tennessee. I'm going to say Tennessee wins this one by 1. Tennessee wins 21-20, but Oklahoma covers the points. Again, look for a turnover or 2 from Nico, and then they overcome it because Oklahoma can't capitalize because that offense is just not what we thought it could possibly be. How about a good one in the Big 12? Utah, another ranked matchup. Number 12, Utah at number 14, Oklahoma State. Utah favored by 1.5. Kyle Whittingham and Mike Gundy, both in their 20th year as head coaches. These are 2 guys, along with Kirk Ferentz. I believe they're the only 3 coaches that predate me doing this job, which is wild. I have so much respect for Kyle Whittingham. I don't know how long he's going to coach. I wouldn't be shocked if this is his last year, in particular with the type of team that he has and the opportunity that he has to maybe move into the Big 12 and possibly win the conference in his first year and go to the playoff. If he were to take Utah to the college football playoff, then think about what he would have done in his career at Utah, taking them from the Mountain West and beaten Alabama in a bowl game, taking them from the Mountain West to the Pac-12, get to the point where they were a dominant team in the Pac-12, goes to 2 Rose Bowls, wins that conference, and gets over the hump. Now the only thing left for him to do is actually put them on par with the elite teams in college football, which I think that they are, and get to the college football playoff. If he's able to do that, then we will look back in hindsight at his career and his legacy at Utah as one of the great legacies in college football for any head coach in history. It's a little rant on Kyle Whittingham. I do expect Cam Rising is going to be back for this one. His finger injury, there's nothing broken. He sat out last week. It's the throwing hand, which makes me a little bit worried. But when Cam Rising is the quarterback for Utah, I just really believe in Utah. He and Alan Bowman, by the way, in this matchup, Alan Bowman and Cam Rising combined to be like, I want to say like 49 years old between them. There's starts going on in the NFL with the combined age of quarterbacks at 44. So it's like you've got as experienced a quarterback matchup as you can possibly get. Both of these guys were members of the 2018 recruiting class. 2018 recruiting class. That's wild. Utah has historically been really good against the run, and that's where Oklahoma State needs to lean. Oklahoma State has not run the ball that well with Ollie Gordon, the returning Doak Walker Award winner. It has been somewhat quiet over the last couple of games. 90 total rushing yards for Ollie in the last couple of games. Now they're going to face a defense that I've always felt like is going to play physical. They're going to be tough against the run. They're going to get after the passer. Utah's defense, to me, is always kind of the X factor because they just don't allow anything easy for the opposition. Brant Keithy, Utah's tight end, he had 3 touchdowns in the opening game, 8 catches through the first 3. Oklahoma State's defense has been a little bit weaker, and this was the question coming into the year for them. Would the Cowboys' defense improve to a point where we could say, yes, they're the favorite in the Big 12? And to this point, the answer is no. They've given up the 3rd most plays of 25 or more yards in college football this year. Arkansas had 8 of them in that double OT game. They've given up 25 explosive plays. 25. So if Rising's back, I think Utah's a better team. They're favored. I get it. They're on the road. I really do. But that's why you need an experienced quarterback. I like Utah in this one. I think Utah's defense is really strong. I don't love Oklahoma State's defense, even though I like their program a lot. I think Utah wins this one by 10, 31-21. So I'm laying the 1.5. I'm taking Utah 31-21 on the road, and the Utes kind of announced themselves as the direct competitor with Kansas State. I think Kansas State and Utah are going to be the clear-cut number 1 and 2 teams in the Big 12 coming out of this week. Let's move on to Miami at USF, South Florida. Miami is a 16.5-point favorite. They're now in the top 10 in the AP. I've got them in the top 5 in my rankings because of Cam Ward. I like what Cristobal has done from a recruiting standpoint, but Cam Ward is what takes them over the top. So they hit in the transfer portal, and now they head to Tampa and take on a South Florida team, which played Alabama incredibly tough a couple of weeks ago in a 1-point game into the 4th quarter. Now, Alabama took off in the 4th quarter, and this is going to be a big measuring stick game for Miami. Can you go out and take care of business against South Florida? And in a large sense, we're going to be able to kind of compare directly through common opponents what Miami is and possibly what Alabama is. I'm a huge Cam Ward guy. This guy is thrown for 345 yards per game so far this season. He leads the country with 11 touchdown passes, and he's already completed 24 passes that have gone for more than 20 yards. 5 more than anybody else in the country. So he's explosive throwing the football down the field. He sees it. I really love what they're doing. They're averaging 53 points through 3 games, their best start in school history. Think about that, because they've had some incredible offenses through the years. I know that South Florida is going to want to run the ball. Byron Brown, their quarterback, ran it decently against Alabama. They don't throw it all that well. They do have a couple of running backs whom I like. They average double-digit carries, each of them. So you kind of have to stop what becomes almost like a triple option attack from the shotgun. They ran it for over 200 in that loss to Alabama in their second game. But the Miami defense has not allowed a touchdown over the last 2 games. Granted, it was inferior opponent. I'll get you that. But Reuben Bain looks like he's still out after getting hurt early in that Florida game. We'll see what that means for for the Miami defense. I still think that this Miami defense is pretty salty, and the offense allows them to be aggressive because the offense can be the great eraser. I don't think that 16.5 is going to be difficult for them to cover. So for me, I like Miami scoring at least 35. So I'll put them on the low end to try to be conservative, 35. And I think South Florida scores 10 points. I think Miami's too fast. I think that there's too much film. There's not enough of a threat of the passing game for South Florida. And it's 35-10 Miami. I'm laying them even on the road. So I'm taking a lot of road teams and laying the points. You might not like that, but that's where we're going to land this week on the preview show. 9-7 so far on the year against the spread. Those are my picks. Just to recap the picks really quickly. I've got Nebraska 24-14, laying the points of 8.5 against Illinois. I have got USC laying the 5.5 on the road, 28-17 USC. Tennessee wins, but I don't think that they cover. So I think they win by 21-20 over Oklahoma. Oklahoma is a 5.5 point dog, 6.5 point dog in that one. I think Utah covers on the road against Oklahoma State. They're favored by 1.5. I like them 31-21. And the last one, Miami is favored by 16.5 in Tampa against South Florida. I like them 35-10. I'm thinking that Miami covers, and that'll do it for the picks today. Remember, rate and review this show wherever you listen to it. Follow us on, subscribe on YouTube, I should say. Leave a comment below. I'll try to jump down there. Enjoy the weekend of college football, everybody. Big noon Saturday, Marshall, Ohio State. Gus, Jenny, and I will be there.